Hello. So it's 11:41 p.m. and I think I just need to talk. And I know that my room is messy. So you can judge me for that if you want to, because I would probably judge myself for that, but I don't feel like cleaning it. There's my hamster. His name is Popcorn. On this day, 1 year ago, I watched my best friend die. And it really sucked. And honestly, sometimes I just kind of wonder why we live in a world where you can visit your friend in the ICU on her 16th birthday and she'll be laughing and smiling and getting better. And then 3 days later, she passes away. And this is less than 2 months after your other best friend passed away. Like, I don't even understand how that happens. On this day last year, Eileen Nicole Smith's sister, Sarah, texted me and told me that I needed to hurry down to Bronson Methodist Children's Hospital and say goodbye to Eileen. And as someone who tends to assume the best, I thought, yay, she's getting better now. She's being transferred to U of M, because that was the plan. She was going to go to University of Michigan Hospital to be evaluated for her transplant, her lung transplant, once she got better. And then she texted me back, no, that's not why we're saying goodbye. And that's when I knew. And so my dad and I got in the car, and he sped me down up to Kalamazoo. I got out of the car. I had called our favorite nurse, Deb. Alex and Eileen and I, we just all loved Deb. And so I called Deb and told her that this was happening. And she met me there because my dad couldn't stay. So I got out of the car and went into the lobby of the hospital. And Deb was there, which was really nice. And we went up to the 3rd floor, which is where I've spent a big chunk of my childhood and where I met Alex and Eileen and where we broke a lot of rules. And we went into a place I had never been before, which was the ICU. and everyone just seemed really sad in that wing of the hospital. And when they saw me, I grew up with these people, so when they saw me, they knew why I was there. And all the nurses and doctors and respiratory therapists and everyone just kind of gathered around me, and it slowly faded until I was with the 4 whom I was closest to, Deb being one of them. And I asked if I needed to put a gown on to prevent cross-contamination, and they just said no. So Deb and I went into the room, and there were like 20 people in there, and it was so small. It was so small. There wasn't a bathroom. It was just a corner of the room had a toilet, and there was a curtain in front of it. They had been washing her hair over the trash can. I had never been in the ICU before, other than 3 days earlier to visit her on her birthday. And I sat down on the bed. I sat down on the bed and held her hand. And she was really, really pale. And I'm really, really pale, but she had absolutely no color, except her face was a little bit yellow. And I remember that her earrings weren't pushed in all the way. But I held her hand and it was really stiff. She would take like a really shallow breath every 6 seconds or so, really quick, like, and you could just like hear the fluid rattling in her chest. And her dad told me it was a really, really bad night the night before. He had signed a DNR, so I knew. She was only 16. She was barely 16. 16 in like 2 days. And so I held her hand and I told her that I loved her, that she was brave and funny and smart and crazy, just absolutely insane. And I told her that I couldn't believe that she and Alex did something together again, because they always had to do everything together and I was always left out. I was even left out of this. But it made me feel better knowing that Eileen had Alex waiting for her, because I know that Alex could handle it herself, but I knew that Eileen needed somebody with her. And then I told her I loved her again, and I backed against the wall so that the rest of her family could see her again. And we just stand there. We just stood there for like 5 more minutes, just in dead silence except for her breath. And nobody said anything, and then it was almost like we were waiting for it to happen, like we wanted it to happen, But at the same time, we were absolutely terrified that it was going to happen. So every time she took a breath, the break between her breath grew longer. So we kept thinking it was going to happen, and then she would breathe again, and then it finally didn't happen. Everybody started crying. And everyone was screaming. And then this stuff started to come out of her mouth. And our favorite respiratory therapist rushed in and started to catch it. And I hugged someone who I didn't know. And then Deb came back in and told me it was time to get out. And then I waited for my mom to come pick me up for like 2 hours. Then I went home, and I didn't see her again until the funeral. But after that, obviously, after that I didn't see her. So that was what happened a year ago today. I really miss her, and I really love her. And I really miss Alex, and I really love her. And that was the hardest spring of my life. And that's why we need a cure for cystic fibrosis. That's why we need a cure for cystic fibrosis.